We got
Hi,
face
everybody.
reveals. Hello.
What's up? Just welcome to this impromptu discussion about the Clash of Worlds Godtear tournament that's coming up. Yeah, Godtear. Woo woo. I'll be your host for this. I'm Sam Hill, Grumpysarn on the Discord, and I am not participating in the tournament, so that makes me the facilitator of this discussion. We have present 5 of the 6 captains of the teams in this team tournament format. So let's just give those folks a chance to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who's on their team and how they divided up the champions. I guess I should explain how the format works a little bit. So my understanding, and I'm not playing in the tournament, so someone please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you've got 3 players per team, like 3 human players, one of whom is the captain, and that's someone who's sort of selected from the top of the rankings on Longshanks. And the idea is that they pair with sort of newer players and help them strategize for each round of the tournament. And so the way it actually works is that among those 3 players, they draft or decide as a group like who's going to have which champion, but no 2 players can have the same champion. And then for each round, there are 3 scenarios, and they decide as a team which of the human players will bring their list of 5 champions to each of the 3 options within that scenario. So there's a whole lot of player agency in the setup, but yet you're kind of managing a limited pool of champions and somewhat restricted by sort of what scenarios there are to play. Did I more or less get that right? Anyone want to add, edit, or yeah?
Yeah, I think that's
you
correct.
got that right.
All right, cool. So with an understanding of the format, let's just start with Jeff Gearbox Mitchell. Tell us a little bit about your squad and how you went about setting it up.
Yeah, so we have, I'm lucky in that we also have Mind Static. Derek, he is the world number 8 because he beat me last night in our Crow Invitational game, knocking me from 8th place down to 9th. But we've worked out. We worked out with the new guy Rob. 3 lists. One was to free up some of the more powerful characters that I took. One was an easy to use list for Rob because he played 2 games total so far of Godtear, and one was the crazy thing that Derek came up with, and I handed him the most powerful list I could, and he said, "No, I don't like this," and he tore it up and made his own thing. But we'll talk more about that later. I'll let the next person go.
All right.
Charlie, tell us about it.
So, I've got Rory as my intermediate player, and I've got Dasenkop as my new guy. So, as new bro is the term I like to use. I'm carrying over from some other online games, but yeah, he's my new bro, and I'm really excited about him. He came up forward with a list of 5 that he wanted to play. So as a captain, it was really easy for me to facilitate that because I kind of asked, "Hey, what do you guys want to play?" So I'm excited about his. It's pretty balanced, pretty good. A lot of starter champions. So yeah, I'm going to be. My kind of strategy with it is asking them what they want to play. And I know Rory's Cornerstone, he wanted to play around Mournblade. So then once we knew that, we helped facilitate a list. And then my best way to help them, I think, is going to be like looking at their games, helping them practice like opening deployments, opening plots, and pick ban strategy. And I think once we get that, we'll be good. And my most excited thing about it is Rory. He's the guy that has designed the AI way to play, like a solo mode. So we've been using that to kind of help dictate our matchups and kind of use that to see, what's going to be good this round 1 and moving on through the tournament.
Wow. Help from the robots.
Mm-hmm.
They should enjoy it.
I know, we're going to be unstoppable.
Next up, we've got Diceham. Can I call you by your first name? Is that all right?
You can. It's Tom.
Tom! Tell us about your
Hello.
squad, Tom.
Hey. So yeah, I feel like I kind of lucked out with the team draw. I got Marty Boy and Mr. Fishopolis, both of which I've actually played quite a bit, so I don't really have any new bros. So we were able to really just kind of talk it through. I did kind of put it to them who they wanted to play, and Marty came in with about 6 that he was very interested in, particularly Styx, and a couple others. and then Fishopolis had a couple of go-tos, and I kind of just let them build their list first, and then I built mine from the remaining, just to challenge myself, see what kind of an interesting, workable list I could build from that, and also just to give them some advantage.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. All right, next up, Dave. Still Dave in our hearts.
Still Dave. So I'm Dave. I'm captain of the Hex Heroes. My intermediate is Colin, who smashed me 6-0 in my last game that we played together. And then my new bro is Curious Cactus, who I've not played against yet. I think it sounds like similar to some of the others. Colin was very good. Together he and I just kind of said, Curious Cactus, you figure out your 5 first. He came up with 3 that he particularly wanted, it seems like, from the starter boxes. Then helped him kind of add a couple of easy extra ones onto there. And then Colin kind of came up with his, and I took what was left, really. So it was quite straightforward.
Very generous, very giving. You know, just quickly going back to Tom's squad, one thing that I like to keep tabs on with Longshanks is who I consider to be the most Longshanks underrated player. Like a while back, I gave M. Bowers the shout out, and then proceeded to win the next tournament.
Oh yeah, he's
my current most underrated Longshanks player is Mr. Fishopolis. Watch out. Fishopolis is dangerous.
I feel the same.
With that list too.
Yep, so kind to give
We're
Kylin
gonna
and Wraith
talk about that
home.
later, actually.
We will. Yeah, we'll drill down into these individual lists, but
For
that
sure.
is definitely a player who should be ranked higher on Longshanks and who is bringing.
I think she might be after
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry about that. All right, and then finally, John, tell us about your team.
Hello, I've got a dream team of Ben Christensen and Angry Yeti. So Ben has very strong analytical skills. I know you guys have probably seen that. Sorry. In chat already. Before we even started our discussion, he came in with 3 lists of champions that he feels would be very strong for each of our individual lists. So that was quite good. And then Angry Yeti is a pretty unique perspective on the game, and he wants to focus on anti-meta teams. So, and he has a really large champion pool, which was great because anything we wanted to incorporate, we could put onto Yeti's list. So, honestly, they're complementing my weaknesses, which is pretty much the entirety of the game, as Dave just showed. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, this is a really exciting format. I mean, just looking at these lists, it just really thrills me. Just so I'm sure that all of our viewers know all the teams' names. All right, Tom's team is the Hexy Beasts. That is my favorite team name.
Very nice.
Credit to Marty Boy for that one.
Yeah, John's is Deus Hex Machina, also very strong. Dave, gotta say, my least favorite team name, the Hex Heroes.
That's outrageous. That's
Exactly.
outrageous.
Yeah. Sorry. Charlie, Jack's Brewing Company, excellent work there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. M. Bowers, objectively good, which,
Very
solid, decent effort. Yeah. It's a shout out back to the Objectively Better blog, which was a short-lived blog you made that was very good.
Nice.
And then the Static Gear Robbers is just a lazy amalgamation of everyone's Discord handles. But
Hey, we have a logo.
I know,
all
you
right?
guys have an emote already. That is crazy.
Uh-oh.
Nerds.
Total
so
nerd.
I think,
I feel like I'm behind now. I don't have a logo.
wow, okay, we'll do a logo power rankings later.
Yes.
Oh, mine is pulled out of paint. It was just to make sure we had one. Oh God, we're gonna be judged on this now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to
there'll be
learn paint.
mottos and then-
Yeah. T-shirts.
So, we were talking about Mr. Fishopolis' list. Ooh, terrifying. I was wondering if we could take a moment and just talk about the individual lists that each of you have put together for your games and kind of where you see those being used. Because in this scenario, you have a choice of scenarios, right, in this tournament. So kind of the logic of that list and what role it plays in the overall team, I think would be good to talk about a little bit. So we'll start with Charlie. I'm just going to read your list for the people. You've got Wraith Marid, Shale, Kira, Fenra, and Jack. How do you see that five-some working out?
Let's see. Well, here, let me pull up, copy paste this quick, just so I have it. But yeah, what I'm thinking here is I took what was left, like I said, and I wanted to make sure. I'm always been favoring control. I love being able to displace and disrupt. So Wraith and Shale were left in the pool for me, and those are two great comfort picks. So I wanted to do that, and then I also wanted an experience of learning the new champion Fenra. She's a good maelstrom, I think, with all the displacement. She's like a Grimgut, where if you can displace small followers all to the same hex next to Grimgut and do that in the plot, it's a huge battle ladder swing out of a champion that's not the biggest battle ladder manipulator. So she's there to set that up, and then I also have the alternate win condition of the big followers with Kira, Landslide, and then Jack. So I think Jack is definitely one I'm wanting to improve as well. He's kind of like a Mournblade, but he also, can heal up and be a point denial. So I've got some point denial in my list by having large followers with healing, but I also have, the potential damage of Kira and Fenra being able to at least manipulate the battle ladder somehow. Because I think, especially in this 5-1-3 format, you need to be able to manipulate the ladder if you want to control. So yeah, and I'm anticipating going on the control scenarios. Like for this week, I'm playing a quest because it also suits my other lists to be on the other two scenarios. But yeah, I'll be there. And the cool thing about this tournament is if you're playing a control list and a control scenario, you're probably going to be playing against a control list on a control scenario. So it's interesting how to build. And I think, there's lots of generalist lists out there, and if you can have a generalist, an aggressive, and a control, it's probably the best for your team that you can do. And I think my team kind of landed a little bit there, so yeah, I think that's mine.
Yeah, that makes sense. I should probably say for everyone, round one this week is Quest, Death, and Life. So each squad will kind of have to pick which of those. All right, thanks, Charlie. Next up, Tom, tell us about your 5-sim and how they're going to be deployed. I'll just read the list for the people. You've got Rangosh, Maxon, Fenra, Jack, and Grimgut. Just love seeing Rangosh and Maxon together.
Right?
What a bromance.
I knew that was originated from your idea, I think. But I did again kind of pick from the leftovers. But I knew Maxon and Rangosh were a great combo. I love Jack. I think I'm currently #1 rated Jack.
Nice.
I think him and Rangosh are deadly together, but I also, a while back, I think I stumbled on this triumvirate where Grimgut, Maxon, and Jack all feed into each other, where the other two are slow, but Grimgut speeds him up. Jack has low accuracy, but the Gearhawks give him boons, and Grimgut's easy to hit but hard to kill, and Jack just constantly refills his health pool. So I think those three actually feed into each other, and Maxon and Grimgut can both easily dump followers next to Fenra's targets. So my thought is to have them kind of, whichever piece gets pulled out, there's still some interlocking usefulness there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. This also strikes me as a format where like synergy lists like that will be easier to use, right? Because of your choice of scenario. Yeah. Cool. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think I'm on life this time, so my slowness won't be too much of a problem.
Outstanding. Thank you. All right. So Dave, you are bringing Fenra, Sneaky Pete, Styx, Mournblade, and Jack. How do you see yourself putting that team on the board?
Yeah, I think much like Charlie, my team's going to be much more probably control based. So when Charlie said he's on Quest, I'm probably going to be on Quest most of the time too. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there, Charlie. I think, like Tom as well, I developed my list after kind of the other two players, and so part of that was trying to find what kind of gaps we had on field yet, and that was mostly around banners and control. Hence, taking the two Guardians. I'm not sure if Jack and Mournblade is going to be a brilliant combo for two like long range planting, or if it's going to be a terrible combo because Jack can't hit Mournblade. But there's only one way to find out. I went for Styx as my 5th to try and like provide an anchor. So if I've got Jack and Mournblade on the flanks, Styx can kind of hold down the middle, not be pushed around on death, and kind of deny that area was my intention. And then hopefully I can get the Jack badge from Tom too, which would be nice.
A lot of competition for it this tournament. A lot of the captains have Jack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jack is so much fun. He's just like brilliant design.
Yeah, his kit is
and
just
the other two
so
champions-
loaded. Yeah. Mhm.
Agreed. And my other two champions are the two dodge 5s. So I've got 2 long-range banner planters and 2 dodge 5s. So it's a bit of like a skew list, but I'm really excited because Fenrir I want to try more, and the other 4 are 4 of my favourites. So it's going to see how it goes, really.
That's awesome. Okay, hey, breaking news. I went to Adepticon, saw Jamie Perkins. One thing he told me is that they will never, ever create a situation where we can field an all Dodge 5 warband. Is that would, I guess, break the game? So the fact that you're like pushing that edge now, Dave, I think shows your keen understanding of the game.
Mhm.
Shouldn't take
Great.
Lily
So-
to get some more dog food going.
Oh yeah, that's right. Cool. And then finally, John, tell us about your squad and how you see yourself putting it on the table. I'll just read who you've got. It's Rangosh, Lorsan, Kalen, Titus, and Jack.
Yeah, so we kind of went around with my list for a while after they had practically locked theirs in, and I had Rangosh, Lorsan, Titus, and Jack, because I wanted to move away from my very comfortable champions, which is like Kira, Jean, Nia. I mean, that's, they're kind of core to what I tend to do, so I wanted to really move away from that. So I'm finally going to get a ranked game onto Rangosh, probably. Finally going to get a ranked game onto Kai Lin, potentially. But really, I had a team of 4 with a 5th spot, which I had filled by someone else. It was Nia. And then Ben talked me into taking Kai Lin, because if I didn't, essentially, I would not be able to play Rangosh at all, because he was really the only ban target on my team without Kai Lin there. So that's kind of how that formed. I think really this is more of a skirmish team than a control team. So I'm excited to kind of play that side of Godtear, which is something I don't normally do.
Yeah, that makes sense. One theme I hear a lot is that it sounds like you're all using this format as an opportunity to kind of explore new styles. Like a lot of you are taking Benra. So that leads me to wonder, like, what do you see this tournament doing for you and your growth as a player? Like, how are you hoping that it serves the community and for like your own trajectory in interacting with the game? What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, for sure.
Wait,
I think
talk about my
Jeff. Yeah. He's at
Jeff
How did
list.
I-
all the way around back to 1. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
It's just because I don't like it.
Oh, you taught me
That's-
how to play this game because you don't like me. I see how it is. No.
No, that's right.
Before we get to that, I'll go with my list. It's Kalen, Rangosh, Maxon, Luella, and Mornblade.
Oh my god.
And it exists to fight Kalen, Lily. It exists to fight Fishopolis's list, really. Like, I figured Skullbreaker, Lily, Jack, Kalen, and whoever else, probably Wraith, makes for the, like, high end. And I was like, okay, how can I build a list that fights that on a toe-to-toe basis, but doesn't use all of that as a mirror match? And so what I did was I was like, well, if I bring Kalen and Maxon and Rangosh, because I'm going to bring Maxon because I have 20% of the ranked Maxon games on Longshanks. And it'll, after 5 games, it'll probably be close to 25%. And that's ridiculous. Anyways, I was going to bring Maxon, so I definitely bring Rangosh. I decided that Kalen was the most important piece to bring out of those 4 because I wasn't bringing Skullbreaker. And then I was like, okay, well, I need to bring Luella to counter the other stuff. And then I was like, well, it looks like I'm going to be doing quests, so I should bring Mornblade. And that was my thought process. I guess I'm the only person who dictated my list before I handed the rest of it to my team. Maybe that's just me, but once I handed it out, I let people choose what they wanted out of the remaining pool. But yeah, I knew what I was going to play before anyone else got to pick their stuff. I didn't build a fresh list. I built what I know so that I can try to win.
Yeah.
Except for Mournblade. I'm not very used to Mournblade, but I'll try.
I don't think he'll let you down.
I bless your. Yeah, you're gonna have a good time. I bless your Mournblade journey. Enjoy. Just
All right.
You're
ask
usually
yourself.
piloting Maxim on the other side of the Warblade matchup. You've gone the complete opposite way.
Now I have both.
Yes.
Yeah. No, just at any moment when you're playing with Mournblade, just ask yourself, like, what is the most cruel, heartless, fun-sucking thing I can do? And that's usually going to be the correct.
Isn't that how I always play the game, Sam?
This is what I'm saying. It's going to be great. Yeah. This is why
Yeah,
I
this
don't
is
like you on a personal level.
You
Yeah.
don't know you love Mournblade yet. You're about to.
For those of you at home,
All right.
Mournblade is not someone to teach new players with. I have made that mistake before.
No, that's true.
This is very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. No, great point. Okay, cool. So what was I asking before? We remembered that
Personal
I forgot
journey.
plays Mournblade. Yeah, right. How does this tournament sort of contribute to your goals as a player, perhaps even as a person? You know, what do you think, Tom?
For sure. I think we've all kind of used this opportunity to step out of our comfort zones to some degree in terms of the champions you're bringing. Certainly, I don't think any of us are great with Fenra, and we're all taking some people that we're maybe not as familiar with. So I did want that challenge just to start with kind of its own. The same thing I really like Crow Draft because it forces you to make a list out of an awkwardly limited pool, and I kind of approach this the same way. I like that, forcing you to think about different combinations. And yeah, I do like. I feels like the community is becoming more and more of a cohesive thing. It's always been a lot of individuals that are very interested in this and kind of ping off each other and have fun playing against each other. But I feel like it's becoming A, bigger, and B, more of a cohesive, interactive, passing information back and forth kind of a thing. And I think this really feeds into that nicely. And I was trying to shepherd that as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point about the relative cohesiveness of the community. I mean, I think the fact that this is happening is just like another example of this like lovely game that kind of went unrecognized for a while, starting to flourish, right? Cool, great. All right, Dave, how about your thoughts on like what's purpose this tournament serves in the big picture?
Yeah, I think probably fairly similar points to Tom. I think for me, like I know I'm very vocal on Discord. It's a great opportunity for procrastination, and this tournament definitely furthers that. I think likewise, using that, it's easy to kind of often play with the more kind of experienced players or playing tournaments and things like that. So it's nice to kind of get to say work with a couple of others and really try and like support them kind of going through the process and support their thinking and kind of really like invest that time with a couple of others, I think, and just kind of trying to help, bring people more kind of comfortably into the game. It's my intention, but there's something we want to find out. Plus, as Tom said, getting to experiment a bit more as well. I think it's a start of a team that I've not played before. Not sure how it's going to work out, but I'm kind of looking forward to trying it.
Outstanding. How about you, John? What is the appeal of this tournament for you in the big picture?
Well, I think there's a dual appeal, right? When I was making my list, I didn't want to have the comfort, kind of like what Dave and Tom were saying, because there is a chance that we get put up against, someone who could be playing their very first tournament game. And I want this to be more fun and a learning experience, so that's why I was coming in with champions that I've never played before, at least, in a ranked game. So that was number one, that was important to me. And two, I want to see, at least during the games and hopefully after the games, a little bit of time where we can kind of explain why we're doing what we're doing, and what you saw as something that yourself could improve on, or even a new player that you're playing with that they can improve on, and where that goes, as long as people are open to that feedback. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity for that.
It's a really good point. There's been very little teamwork in the development of Godtear as a competitive activity. This is sort of exciting new ground. It's a really solid point. Okay, thank you. Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that I'm in a personal God tier journey. I'm developing as a teacher and leader in a way that I've generally just been blazing my own path and checking in with the top end competitive players and making sure that my understanding of the meta matches with everyone else's and just powering through with that. But since I can't use all of the power pieces that I crutch with, lean on, uh, it allows me to focus on teaching others how to use those pieces and build the techniques that are useful in winning a game of God tier. So I'm focused on my team as the team captain, and my objective is always to have fun with my opponent, but my goal is to have our team win the tournament. So I'm pushing for that, and I'm trying to set us up for success there.
That's great. Love that. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, well, I'm super excited because coming off of the end, finals is coming up for Crow's Nest Invitational. That is like the most competitive God tier I've ever played. Now I'm really excited to be immediately followed up by a team environment where, for me, the competitive pressure is off. And much similar to Jeff, is I'm really trying to bring in more members of the community, people who have the love for the game, and I want to be able to facilitate my experience and my, success that I've had in bringing these new players up. And I can still remember, Sam, the very first game of God tier I ever played online was against you. And I still remember how my nerves were so crazy, and I was literally like, I'm literally playing the LeBron James of God tier right now. And this was really early in my journey, and I want to be able to help these players, because this is what this tournament is we're not solely matched up against our skill level. We're going to be, the new bros are going to be playing intermediate and advanced players a lot of the time, and I want to be able to help them, breathe, help them be comfortable with it, because there's going to be a lot to learn from those games, and that's growing the content and teaching about the game is my biggest goals for this tournament.
Beautifully said. And a really nice segue to the next thing that I wanted to ask, because I imagine that a lot of us are kind of seeing this tournament as a really good source, not only of like fun and games, but also like maybe content that will help new players, right? So let's just like imagine for a moment that you're going into that first game, and your new bro. So I don't know. I guess Tom, this doesn't apply to you, but you can imagine you have new bros on your team, and your new bro is like full of energy, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm playing Dave, the Michael Jordan of God tier. What do I do? Like, what's your advice for how I should approach the game? What is that, as team captains, that advice that you're going to give to your least experienced teammates? Dave, let's start with you. What do you got?
That's a big question. I think managing expectations and then taking what you can from the game one way or another. But I think also really importantly, even when you say managing expectations, it's not to write it off. Go in there excited and confident, and even like in the game, you can learn from the other person. Like Charlie, my first online game was against M. Bowers, and I got absolutely destroyed. But again, learned so much from it. And I think trying to, as you say, have the most fun, take what learning you can, and kind of be open to kind of asking the other person what they would have done differently. And I think one of the things I really enjoy is like critiquing and analysing and trying to figure out what I could have done better. So maybe I'm kind of projecting that my new bro wants to do that too. But my new bro has Fishopolis for their first game, so I think they've already got a little bit of this taste. So we'll see how that goes.
Very nice, very nice. How about you, John? What do you think?
I know I've kind of mentioned this a few times already, but I already feel like my new bro, which is Ben, has a better analytical mind than I do when it comes to so I don't know how much that I'm going to be able to actually help in like the advice department, but at the very least, just thinking about strategies that aren't at the top of their mind. So I know a lot of people struggle with follower movement, follower deployment, and the importance of making sure you're factoring in the banner game while also being a little bit aggressive. So I think the more people play, you kind of come into those skills. So I think that's where I'm going to kind of push my team towards.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That is a thing a lot of new players do miss, or at least underrate at the start. It's a great point. How about you, Jeff? What do you think? What's your advice to new players coming in?
Play practice games with your captains, and you can either swap warbands to see what your captain does with what you're playing, or you can have your captain play what you're going to go up against, so that you have an idea of it. And because yesterday. I had the team meeting where we figured out what scenarios we were going to play for the rest of the tournament, finalized our war bands, and then had a practice game between me and Rob. And we were like, oh, we'll just play 2 turns, show deployment, what have you. 4 turns later, it was like, that was close. That came down to 1 point on the final battle ladder, and it could have gone either way, and it would have been, and it was 3-3 going into turn 4. That was amazing. And we had a great game, but it also showed Rob a lot of the nuances of how to think about it. And since I was doing a training game, I was talking about, are you sure you want to do that? Or this is why I'm making this move. Or you should think about banners before you think about KOs, stuff like that. And that training game was fantastic, both as an experience for me teaching someone up, and as an experience for my new bro, I guess is what we're calling the new players, because he got the to see how I think and absorb what he could from it, and we got a game of Godtear in, which is always a success.
Hear, hear. Yeah,
Win,
so
win,
many
win.
games of Godtear feel that close. Sorry, what were you saying, Tom?
I just said win, win, win.
Nice.
Yeah, agreed. So, Charlie, advice for... I'm not really comfortable with new bros. That feels... I don't know. I love it.
Yeah.
We'll workshop something better.
We'll workshop. We can find something.
For the junior member of the team, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So for them, my advice is to just take a breath, go slow. Where our games are not timed. So make sure you give yourself enough time to really play it out. And ask for help. Even ask your opponent for help after the game, because everyone loves the game. Everyone has a passion. All of us here, sitting here, will take time to talk about the game and what went differently or what could have, changed it. At the end, we all do that anyways. It's a process, but this is going to rank up your level of competitiveness very quickly. So just trust the process, trust your teammates, and roll more 2s. Mike, yep. Just roll 2s. You'll win the game.
The point about taking your time is really important. One thing about Godtear is, at the top of that plot phase, it is A-okay to just stare at the board for 5 minutes before you do anything. And I think a lot of people feel rushed to get going. But, I don't know. I've played a lot of Godtear. At this point, top of the plot phase is when I go get a drink of water or use the bathroom. It's just, fine to really process for a while. Great points. Tom, how about you? Advice for newer people?
Man. Yeah, for newer people, for sure. I mean, we've covered a lot of good stuff. A lot of it is just... I've played a lot of open hand games with new people. I've been trying to bring more and more new players in intentionally lately. And a lot of them I've kind of talked through, just given them very broad strokes, send your reds and yellows to their victims, send your greens and blues to the hexes, and just very broad strokes like that, and then let them once you give them the broad strokes, they start to kind of work out the details for themselves. And I think if you're able to leave just that last little bit of strategy for them to work out in their own minds, it sticks better and they have more fun doing it. But in this particular scenario, both my teammates know what they're doing, so it's just been a lot of dividing up responsibilities in ways that make sense for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. You have a pretty experienced squad. Shout out to Marty Boy. Marty Boy has
real.
been with the community for a long time.
Yeah,
That's a solid person.
He should probably be team captain.
Arguably, I mean, very few people have as many games. As
Yeah. He's always there. We love him.
Here, here. Hey, a question from the chat. Ben, who I'm not sure if we should call Ben a new bro or not, but Ben wants to ask, were there any surprises on most picked or least picked champions in the rosters that were released? So I don't know if y'all have had a chance to really ponder what all the other teams were doing, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So, John, what do you think?
I think what he's really asking, and I'm just going to speak for Ben here since he's on my team and I have the best idea of what he's thinking, is he wants us to have a 30-minute discussion as to the strengths of Morrigan and why no one was confident enough to bring that power to this.
I was this close. I really was.
I think we need a 30-second discussion, don't we?
I'm keeping Morrigan's name out of my mouth.
Welcome to Morrigan chat.
Yeah. No, I mean, Morrigan, Rattlebones, they get a lot of crap all the time in the Discord. I mean, it's not surprising that they're the only two that were left out. And who was the highest? Was it Kaylin that was the number one?
Rangosh and Wraith are in every list.
Rangosh and Wraith. Okay, well, I feel like that's on the flip side, not as surprising with Wraith. I'm a little surprised that Rangosh was on every list only because I feel like his power level has been dropping a little bit with more of an emphasis on dodge champions. But yeah, overall, really, I'm not surprised. I'm kind of looking forward to you guys' insights. So
makes sense. How about you, Jeff? Were there any surprises in terms of most least picked?
No. It felt like the only surprise was only one half tusk. I think was the biggest surprise to me. But the idea that look, these are the champions that the Discord considers the best, and these are the champions that they consider the worst, and on a Discord organized event where the top players are captains of their teams and helping guide the creation of the champion lists, we see a skew towards the characters that are preferred by the champions that are preferred by the top Longshanks players. We're not a top tier. We have a number associated to us. So.
Sure, that makes sense. There's some selection bias here. How about you, Charlie? Anything surprise you?
Yeah, the one half tusk. I think the reason why we don't see him much is because I think actually he plays in an aggressive list. He's one of the more aggressive aggressive guardians, and I think if I would have had more time to plan it out and start thinking that aggressive lists are going to be against aggressive lists on those scenarios, half tusk would have been definitely more desirable if I was doing that. And the other thing is not as much Lorsan. We have 3 Lorsans, which is a lot, but that was another one I was really close to play because, man, she has just gone up in value, being, seeming to be able to consistently handle Skullbreaker and Lily, or at least be able to tangle with them, because we've been seeing a lot of consistent 4 dodge. All 3 people have 4 dodge. And then the only other thing is, oh no, I just lost my thought. Yeah, I'll chime in if I remember it again, but, I remember it. We have 15 champions. 15 champions are a lot. So, being able to have such similars, but, the juggernauts of Skullbreaker and Rangosh are going to be everywhere because a Juggernaut is amazing in this game. They go make the game about them. Area denial are all around them, able to influence knockouts. So, yeah, I think that's about it for me. But 15 champions is a lot, so it's kind of cool we're seeing such diversity, even with, there's like 11 more that we didn't play. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, as someone who's perhaps guilty of using strong language sometimes to say that certain champions aren't that good, I am astonished at how well balanced this game continues to be, and how Steamforged does a really thoughtful job of doing things like what you were talking about, like putting Lorsan in and realizing maybe she needs some more good matchups, and then future releases kind of elevate the value of that champion. They seem to be really deft at like pulling those levers. Great points. How about you, Tom? Thoughts on the champion selection here? Anything surprise you?
Nothing crazy. I'll echo Jeff and say I think no surprise that the top champions were picked. I was this close to bringing Half Tusk myself, but I chickened out. I wanted that Grimgut speed and control. Just that makes a lot of sense, especially when you're trying to build a competitive list. And I think a lot of even newer players are like, "Well, I need a really good list to stand up against these potentially more experienced players." So I think the ones considered dangerous are going to get picked.
Mindstatic in the chat is saying that Lorsan is goated and that Helena should be in every list. As a noted Helena hater, do you have any thoughts about that or on the question we're all answering?
Who are we asking this question of?
Well, Dave is next.
Okay,
but if anyone has really strong,
as your cap, you're his captain though. You got to keep that guy in line, Jeff. He's a bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah.
I'll address that after Dave speaks.
Does he even have Helena in his list? Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Okay.
I was going to say, goated is a strong word, but I totally agree with Charlie. Lorsan has massively come up with my expectations, and I think this format's kind of rewards bringing two Maelstroms. I think, Jeff's brought the kind of ideal pair of Kale and Luella. But if your opponent only brings one Maelstrom and you can ban them out and bring Lorsan, I think she's really bringing a lot of value. So I don't agree with goated, but I'll agree with more value certainly in this format. And as Charlie said, with the recent releases, particularly into Lily too. Just briefly for me, I was surprised. Obviously, I'm saying this with my own bias, having brought him, but I'm surprised there's not more Pete. And I'm also surprised there's not more Blackjaw. I think Blackjaw's very new player friendly, quite versatile. And both him and Pete bring a lot into Lily, who's obviously very popular at the moment, so I was a bit surprised there's not either of those.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm surprised that we only have 5 teams with Lily and not every team with Lily. Oh my gosh.
All right, I want to talk about Derek's question. I'm going to interrupt here. I lost my game on Friday against Derek in the Invitational because he brought Lorsan into my Lily Skullbreaker list. Not just because of that. It was a good game, it was a close game, and it was a fun game. But that Lorsan pick gave him an advantage in the matchup that I didn't foresee. So I agree that Lorsan stocks have gone up, but I also disagree with Derek on Helena and her strength. But thankfully, she gets to avoid her least favorite scenarios in this format, so other people can pick up the slack and she can try and possibly succeed on the scenarios that she is strong at. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, turn 5 knowledge. There's no one I'd rather have than our little Joan of Arc clone,
Construction too.
Construction,
I haven't had the...
Because
it's worth pointing out,
your opponent plants on a tall hex, and then you walk on top of it, crush the banner, and stand there, and they're like, "What now?" Anyways, go ahead.
No, I was just going to point out for anyone who is curious, construction will be a part of this this tournament. It's going to be in weeks 3 and 5. So those of you who want to get a look at how that new scenario plays, make sure you tune in for those rounds of the game. We have one more question, I think, from the chat, which is one of the things. This is from Ben again. He said one of the things our team talked about a lot was the importance of picking champions that we enjoy and are familiar with over optimal in a vacuum, and is wondering if that was a consideration for other teams. So just quickly, Jeff, was it?
Oh yeah. I picked my familiarity, handed off easy to use champions to Rob. And then Derek tore my here's everything that's powerful list apart and just took what felt good to Derek. And considering that Derek has beaten me with the pieces that he chose, I have no objection to it. It was we also said that if you're familiar with a piece and you like it, it's more important than objectively powerful or subjectively powerful in a vacuum.
How about your team, Charlie? Was that not the case?
Yeah, especially with my my new guy. Just making sure, like, when he brought his 5, like, it was, I maybe could have said, like, hey, maybe let's try Rodri instead of Finvar, or, stuff like that. But, I really think the 5 that he brought were awesome. They're great, they're usable, they're new player friendly, and it's more, so I definitely am a huge proponent for comfort, especially, in the format like limited pool draft or crow draft, that we played a lot in this last thing. Just being able to know your champion limits and the secret combos, like putting a move blight down with Lily and then pushing someone on the move blight. Like, for some players that comes easy, for others, it's not. And the more you play, or the more times you get gened by someone, then you can know, oh my god, I'm going to go gene this guy. Right, and it just works, like for me, Mournblade is, I always am looking for those opportunities to lock those Nightshades in a way that the other person wasn't expecting, right? And if I tried to play, someone else like I don't have practice on, I think I would have less results, even though they were, maybe a bit better, right? So yeah, don't be afraid to play your comforts, guys. It'll reward you in the end.
See, my trick is my comforts are the power pieces. Okay, Tom, how about your team? How did that conversation
go? 100%. I mean, really, comfort picks is where we started. We kind of each threw out our comfort picks to begin with, and then tried to fill in the gaps with some strategic list building. But we really started with, hey, I like Finvar. Hey, I like Skullbreaker, and broke it down from there.
Yeah, and Godtear is really a game that supports that. You really can.
Yeah, you're not going to completely go wrong, and half the time nobody's going to be playing with a completely optimized list, I don't think, except for Mr. Fishopolis. So I think everybody's playing at like a partially strategically built list, partially comfort picks. It's the perfect place to do it.
How about you, Dave? Did your team take familiarity and comfort into account?
Yeah, definitely. I think each time we came up with a list, we kind of brought 3 that we particularly kind of felt we wanted, and then the kind of rest of the team kind of helped shape the remainder of it. I think for me, I felt comfortable about my depth of champions, so I was kind of happy for the others to go first, take what they wanted, and then, particularly when I lost my win streak, try and experiment a bit more with what else I can take. Particularly hence like Pete and Venra, I feel like really cool to see how they stack into the meta. But I think particularly for my new player, he identified his comfort and then was open. He said he wants to experiment then with the remaining 2 champions. So it's trying to identify champions that are accessible and work well with that. So Maxon to go alongside his Rangosh should be a fairly straightforward kind of synergy. And Kaelin to go alongside his Titus, again, should be a fairly straightforward synergy. You can just kill what they want, and Kaelin soaks up the bans holding the 2, which is probably quite good.
Makes sense. And then finally, John, was this something that your team talked about?
Yeah, I mean, we did. And the reason that I wanted to start with them naming their comfortable champions prior to actually creating lists is because in this tournament, we have a very unique situation where we get to pick the scenario that we're going to be involved in, right? So, and it's a choice of 3, which is really unusual. So knowing that you could have a suboptimal list according to the meta, but then be on the scenario that you want actually provides a lot of power in you can play your comfort and still be set up for success. So I think that's really unique and actually a really fun aspect of this tournament.
It's a really good point. Like, optimal in a vacuum. Well, there is no vacuum. You're always playing in a scenario and into a matchup. So, I love Kaelin and I'm not sorry for it, but I'm not bringing her on construction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will be sorry for both of us, Sam.
Are you bringing Kaelin on a construction?
Why am I not doing that?
No. I'm asking if someone's bringing Kaelin to a construction scenario, because my team's already set up what we're going to do for each scenario for the rest of the tournament.
Oh, that's smart.
Wow.
Because we're not going to. Because we have the list of all 15 scenarios.
Might be easier for scheduling too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that way we just lined it up, figured out what was best for us, and then pushed it forward. So when construction comes up, you might have to put your Kalen onto that scenario.
I will happily allow anyone who faces my list, which has Kalen on it, to ban Kalen. Please do.
Oh,
You know,
are we going to talk about bans?
Oh, sure. Jeff, what's the band question that we should ask everyone starting today?
How did you take bans into account in building your list? Like, because I can go first if that and answer my own question to give an idea.
All right.
Sorry, I'm throwing everything out of whack. So we had Skullbreaker left over, and we handed it. And Skullbreaker is pretty easy to use, so we handed it to Rob so that he has ban bait. Because Skullbreaker is always worth banning almost every single scenario, and if Skullbreaker is not banned in a scenario, Skullbreaker comes out and does Skullbreaker things and breaks your skull. So we figure that everyone should have a thing that is bannable, that and either a one ban thing that everyone is going to ban and you play with the other 4 pieces, or 2 ban things that you are damned if you ban one thing and you're damned if you ban the other thing.
Fascinating. Charlie, did your team talk about bans? I should point out to anyone who's unfamiliar with this format is each player brings their list of 5, but then there's a ban. So players can ban one champion from each other's list of 5. Then players secretly select the 3 they'll be using from the 4 that remain and simultaneously reveal those. So how did the ban factor into your team?
Oh, absolutely. That was one of my most exciting thing to talk about with list building, because with Rory, he's got Mournblade, Kylin, Grimgut, Sneaky Pete, and Lily. So with me, he wanted to play Mournblade in kind of a control shell. I'm like, okay, let's grab Kylin, because she's going to get banned, and it gives you some flexibility. And if they don't get banned, say if Lily gets banned or Mournblade gets banned, he can flip-flop into an aggressive list to go anti-control, which is Kylin, Grimgut, and Sneaky Pete, because you just run at them, knock them all down, they can't claim, can't control, because you can phase through them or leap over them. It's a great look to have that redundancy. And for my list, I have Wraith Marine and Shale, so I have redundancy in Shaper Control and Hex Manipulation, and I also have Kira and Fenra in being able to do damage. Probably my weakest link is probably Kira, because I only have one Slayer who does a lot of damage. So if you're banning out my Kira, though, I do still have Fenra and able to try and, if I want to try and set up big, 6-7, attacks, which could happen. But I have lots of, it's always good to have redundancy. So you want to pick one thing you're trying to do, whether that's, have a Maelstrom that's going hard, or having a Juggernaut, or even just any other Slayers. Being able to have 2 of them and being able to lose one and pivot into the other is very valuable. My new bro, he's got Rain Gush and Titus, so he's always going to have access to someone who can deal damage. So I'm happy with that. And he's got 2 Shapers that he can pick between Styx and Nia, and they both do very different things, and can even go together if he wants. So, yeah. Yep, the bans were a lot of fun for me this time. Mm-hmm.
Nice. And I guess we should also broaden this question to just sort of be how do you feel about bans in general? So what do you think, Tom? Bans?
I like them in general, especially with a fixed list kind of thing. I think that's part of the strategy of it is who do I still have? Can I build a team with enough interlocking synergies that even if this piece gets pulled or this piece gets pulled, I still have something workable? I think that's a fun and interesting piece of it. For this particular scenario, with my team, we did talk about bans, probably not as much as we possibly should have. We talked more about our synergies within our teams and, like we said, our comfort picks, because we all kind of knew the game, knew where we were coming from, knew what we wanted to play. We did sort of cross-critique each other, though, and say, okay, if I was facing you, this is what I would ban, and what would you do about it? And we did spend some time doing that, and we all felt comfortable being having a backup, 3 to play, given any particular bans.
Makes sense. Yeah. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think not too much to center what the others have already said. I think one thing to that I thought, additionally, was for my intermediate player, he's got Luella alongside Wraith Myriad, Skullbreaker, and Blackjaw, and Roger is his fifth. And I think Luella really stands out in the band format. I found this in my team for the process that we've just been playing. Your opponent, particularly if they've got someone like Skullbreaker, has to either ban Luella, which then for my intermediate means he gets Skullbreaker and Wraith Myriad, which is fantastic, or they let Luella through and kind of get fried. So I think Luella like really stands out in a ban format. In terms of my opinion on bans, I think kind of pros and cons. I think they're good here, helping the new player kind of be able to kind of tune their matchups a little bit and understand why things may or may not be banned. But I think they also had a bit of complexity too, which again has its downsides.
Yeah, makes sense. John, anything to add? I'm sorry you had to go last on this one. Thoughts on bans?
Like bans in most cases, this tournament is actually one where I think may have benefited from an SFG4 format set up for each team, only because we spend so much time talking about and creating the teams that we have, and maybe some teams are built around like one or two champions, and if one of those gets banned out by the other team, all of that like learning time was really not for naught, but it kind of pushes them into maybe a situation where they're less experienced or less ready for the matchup. But overall, I think, especially in like the Crows draft, the top 8, I think bans are very, very good, because then I can just ban Kaylin every game and never have to play her.
Yeah.
My bias is showing.
Just this little.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Bans are Kaylin.
Yeah. If I could tack on one last thing, I think bans increase fun for experienced players, could potentially decrease fun for newer players if they don't have the depth of champions that they know they like and want to play.
Yeah, that does. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that dovetails nicely with a question we got in the chat too, which is how people feel about this 5-1-3 format. That is where everyone would bring a fixed list of 5, ban one of their opponents, and then choose 3 to play each round, versus what they're calling the 4-3, which I take to mean the Steamforged Games tournament standard approach, where you bring a fixed list of 4 and choose 3 each round with no chance to ban or control other stuff. We all kind of just gave our thoughts on bans, so I think we can just be a little open-ended on this one. If anyone has something they'd like to chime in, just go for it on that question.
Yeah, I got something, if you don't mind me chiming in quick. So yeah, I think we've got a great opportunity from our TO Enigma, because he's doing the 5-1-3. This format's going to get the players up to kind of feel what it's like to play the online competitive Godtear. But me personally, I think 4-3 would have been my choice if I was the TO, just because the barrier of entry is much lower. It's like, I want to pick these, I want to play these. They play them, they play their favorites, but and especially as the Steamforged games themselves are definitely leaning more and doubling down on Bring 4 tournaments. I think I would love, as I move forward, organized tournaments, we'll definitely see a lot more SFG4, especially if I can. I think in summer, I think in August, I think I'm trying to set up a local tournament here in the States, here in either the Twin Cities or southern Minnesota. So, yeah, we're going to be excited about that, and of course, trying to get the Spire support from Steamforged Bring 4. But I definitely understand how people think, the top 4, like the Filthy 4 that Samless had was awesome, definitely a really good list. But the thing is, at this point, we just don't have enough data. We don't have enough games being played, especially in person, to really think that it's as impressive as us, these 8 or 16 players, that play against each other all the time and think about the game compared to the rest. But, I think 5-1-3 is definitely the cleanest, most competitive, most interactive format, but there's list building manipulations that make it hard. The Maelstrom tax, I call it, which is you got to bring 2 if you want to be able to have a Maelstrom, as well as, it's just, it can be hard to interact with certain times. But yeah, that's my whole spiel on it. I'm glad we're 5-1-3, but I think the Bring 4 Play 3 is just something we should get used to as a community. But that's just my take.
So I'll go next, if that's okay. I know I didn't have my hand raised, but
I started that. My bad.
No worries.
It's my fault. I wanted to send it to Anarchy. Go ahead, Jeff.
As the person who codified 513 inadvertently, I am biased towards it. I really like it. I like the use of bans as a means of influencing how the matchup goes. That said, I have a tournament coming up in the end of May in California that is an SFG4 because I might be able to get prize support for it, and because I expect to get new players at the convention that I'm running demos the day before. So if people want to play in the tournament, I don't want to have to get everyone to bring 5 champions, because that's, an overinvestment in a game that you just learned in a con. But I can definitely get people to bring 3 or 4, because in a SFG4 you can just bring 3 and be forced into those 3 every time. But in a 5-1-3 format, you must bring 5 so that your opponent has a ban option.
Yeah, true. What were you going to say, Dave?
I was just going to add a small point. I was very much agreeing, particularly with Charlie's points. And I know for me, I love the 5-1-3 format. I think the bans, although adding a layer of complexity, I think do work better here because of the role of the captains in terms of being able to advise what to ban. Essentially, I think, in someone just going straight in for the first time, they risk banning something else, not particularly relevant, and then getting faced with Kaelin and getting pounded. Whereas here, we can kind of potentially help decrease that negative player experience, which I think is one of the strengths of the bans.
Yeah, freedom from is important. Did anyone else want to weigh in on this question? All right, cool. I would also just like to add the point Jeff made about the SFG standard format at a con is something I really felt at Adepticon. Like, Steamforged was really doing a lot to promote the game there. They put a random champion expansion in everyone's swag bag. And so then if people were to just buy a starter set, they would have a list. And sort of the power of that at in-person events is something that I think was lost on me when I was playing mostly online during lockdown times. So, I've had a lot of bad opinions, and one of them is that the SFG4 format is not a good format. I was wrong about that. It makes a lot of sense for an in-person con experience. Also, as long as we're promoting our tournaments, the Nova Open in early September. Yes. Come on out. Godtear event. Let's go. All right. There's also a question in the chat for me. Has Grumpy had a chance to look at the full team list? Does he have an early pick for favorite? Well, yeah, I do. It's the Hexy Beasts, because this is top to bottom the most experienced team. Like, I mean, as we were pointing out before, like, Marty Boy could be a captain. Mr. Fish, I already called out as like the most underrated person on Longshanks. And then Diced Ham, number 1 in the world for quite a while there. This is sorry everybody. They also have the best name. Like, ooh.
Man, just pack it up.
Is this where we talk about Fishopolis's list?
Yeah.
Or have we already done that?
You mean would absolutely be my list?
yeah, that is filthy.
Mm-hmm.
Filthy.
Yeah. We almost split that one up, and then we're like, nah, let's just go. Let's just have one killer list.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, you succeeded beyond your wildest dreams.
Yeah. No, I gotta say, like, if I had to roll a 5-3-1, like, that would be it. That would be my list, exactly. Like, to the point. For those who are not looking at the rosters, this is Skullbreaker, Lily, Kaelin, Wraith, and Luella. And I guess that's also a good chance to just sort of talk a little bit about kind of the meta champs and where we think it's going. I think construction is an interesting signal for how the future of this game might move forward. I don't know if anyone got a chance to read my interview with Jamie Perkins, but there was a discussion in there about the potential for scenario rotation, which might mean that construction would, instead of adding to the existing 6 scenarios, replace one of them, which would probably be good for some champs and bad for others. So I guess we'll just go around and give everyone a chance to sound off on their thoughts on like meta champions, the future of that. Is it even real? What do you think, Charlie?
I think the meta champs right now We have 4 really good contenders. But it's so funny. I was talking to Dave and John in one of our DMs, and it's so funny because there's just this cycle where Kylin counters Kylin and Lily counters Wraith, but then the 4th one counters Lily, and it's just like this big, Kylin counters Lily, and it's just this big circle. So even if we all had those 4 and just kept playing, you would be able to have good games. But yeah, I mean, I think that the meta's diverse enough. The scenarios are diverse enough. We get the return of Grimgut. Helena looks amazing on construction. I love the new scenarios. And Fenra is a new piece that we don't know where she fits yet. But in the interview, you were talking about they're trying to hone in on new champion releases addressing some of the issues, which is super exciting. I wonder what that's going to look like. And I mean, as far as new releases go, my heart beats for an Orc Guardian with a large follower. Oh, please, please. I can't wait. But yeah, that's it. That's me.
Makes a lot of sense. Tom, what are your thoughts on meta, present, future? Is it real?
For sure. It's a little real. It's real because we talk about it. Like if we didn't go around saying Morrigan and Skullbreaker's great, I don't think it would be as present as it is. Not to say that it's too dominant, but it wouldn't be as big a thing even as it is if we didn't talk about it, because we like talking about it because it's fun to talk about. But I do think that it's very cool that they seem to be, they being SFG, trying to actively shift and break down any meta that begins to stack up by adding new pieces. Oh, here's a new champion that breaks this. Here's a new scenario that absolutely devalues Kaelin and raises Helena, which is awesome. I think actually I kind of built my list hoping to play construction, and I love that they're able to always be adding to make things shift.
Yeah, so much design space and just the way the game is set up. They could keep going forever, it feels like. Yeah. Dave, how about you? What are your thoughts? Meta, future?
Very much agree with Tom. And I also agree with your point earlier, Sam, in terms of I didn't quite believe in it before, but actually seeing it in action, I like how Steamforged Games bringing in new champions is really affecting the meta. We're talking earlier about Lawsand coming up, Rangosh going down, for example. I mean, Sam, you used to argue Rangosh was the best in the game, and I think probably a hard argument to make right now. And I think it's really interesting, and talking about this construction too, Steamforged Games' potential to change the meta without, just 3 new additions. I think that's really exciting. I think the only other thing I'd say is, Charlie said earlier that there's still there's not that much data, and I totally agree. I think the meta currently is more of an advantage, it's more of a head start, but it's not to say that you therefore auto win. And me, but Charlie even more so, have been slightly more vocal against Kaelin being too dominant. And now we're starting to show that sometimes too, in terms of showing their weaknesses. And I think we need more games to kind of really flesh some of these things out.
Yeah, that's an important point. John, your thoughts?
Not much to add. Really, all great points all around. I think really the meta is real, but it's so incremental that it's not as oppressive as I think we make it out to be in chat. For example, one thing I can think of off the top of my head is that if you gave Morrigan an easy access to a damage boon from the Cold Bones, she would be very, very good. So I think really it's incremental advantages for sure, but they're quite small, and that's just going back to the general really good balance that Godtear has.
Yeah, makes sense. Finally, Jeff, thoughts on meta?
There is a meta, but it depends on your scenario, and that is one of the things I love about Godtear, is that Helena stocks, for example, are low on quest, but high on life and high on construction and pretty good on change. That's just one champion, and where she ends up in your in the power rankings of like what you want to bring is different based on scenario. And I think that the ones that we talk about that are meta champions, power champions, Sam's favorite champion, comfort champions, are powerful because they have very few bad scenarios. They're very good in a lot of scenarios, and if we get different scenarios, we will have different opinions on those champions. And if we have different champions that they match up against, we will have different opinions on those champions. So basically what I'm saying is play limited pool draft, because that is the most fun and the most diverse form of playing the game, because there will be pools where Rattlebone is amazing and there will be pools where Kaylin is terrible.
Yeah, here. There's a reason why every time I do a power rankings article, I call it meaningless power rankings, right? Because it's a vacuum. Yeah, it's a really good point you've made, though, that versatility is really what I think we're talking about sometimes when we talk about power level, because in most situations you don't get to pick your scenario, but in this one you do. And I am personally very excited to see how that all sort of unfolds. One last thing that I'd just like to add, even though I'm supposed to be the host, is that all the champions that you all have talked about whose stock is going up because of recent changes are old releases, right? Which is super exciting. Like, I just came from a convention where every person who was like demoing the game and considering getting into it was asking me, like, kind of on the low, like, is there power creep in this game? Am I just always going to have to be buying the new box? And the answer is no. They're, in fact, correcting the meta to help out older champions relative to newer ones, which I think is just like a great sign for the game and its longevity. All right. I sense that we might be drawing to a close. And so I would like to just give everyone just a moment to sound off on whatever's on their mind about Godtear, if there's anything like you want to promote content-wise, or just kind of an opinion you feel the internet needs to have regarding Godtear. And we'll start with Tom. Tom!
No strong final words. I love this game. I love playing this game with you guys and also with newer players. I love seeing it grow. If hopefully I'll start getting a little more content on my YouTube channel, start trying to help the community there. I really enjoy everybody here, Gross, Twitch, and of course Objective Hex. And I can't wait to see you guys out there.
What's your YouTube channel called?
It's called Dicetam GT. Actually, let me double check that. Dicetam GT. It's actually, I'm going to mispromote my own channel because that's how new it is. Oh, it's Godtear ATX is what it is.
Yes, go subscribe.
Godtear ATX?
Godtear ATX for Austin, Texas, which is where I am.
Like and subscribe, everyone.
I am already subscribing. Okay, great. Dave, your thoughts, final words.
Like Tom, no strong final words, no strong final thoughts. But like Tom, again, just really glad to be a part of this community. And I think, really recommend the content in terms of Objective Hex, Charlie's Twitch, Tom's YouTube, Ben's got YouTube as well. And I think it just feels, I love this conversation. It feels great to be around you guys who will talk really eloquently and passionately and just like really insightful, interesting views about the game. So just glad to be a part of the community and keep it up.
Here, here. John, final thoughts for the people.
I was typing them out, so if this comes out worse than it sounds, I apologize. First, just promoting Ben's YouTube channel as well. It's Ben Plays Godtear. And I appreciate that. Everyone should go to Tom and Ben's YouTube channel and subscribe, because I think really what's going to help Godtear grow is stuff like this, content like this, where we're actually actively being engaged with it, having cons like Jeff is running, like Sam is running, really promoting the game, because Godtear had the disadvantage of coming out right before a global pandemic. So there was never really a chance, honestly, for it to grow until recently. That's why three and a half years later, we're finally seeing, SFG kind of pouring resources into growing it in person. And I think that what do I want to say here? Like us doing content like this and really building that base is what's going to help it grow into a larger game. So appreciate you all. You're all great. Thanks for making this game great. And the community, honestly, I haven't had much experience outside of League of Legends, but compared to this, or compared to that, like this community is absolutely brilliant, and you guys are all amazing. So I appreciate you all.
Well said. Well put. Next up, the one person in our community I do not like, Jeff. Jeff, thoughts?
I'm hurt. I'm hurt, Sam, that you say that, even in jest. No. I wanted to promote Sam's blog, Objective Hex. That I know that everyone else has been promoting it, but that is the premier place I find my Godtear information from, because I prefer to read rather than listen to a podcast or watch a long video like this one. Also, if you are in California, come to KublaCon 2023 at the end of May and play in my Godtear tournament. I've got room for 8 people, and I've got 4 tables set up. And go join the Discord if you haven't yet. There is a fantastic community there. That's where we all met each other, except for Sam. I met Sam in person before I met him on the Discord. And it is a great place to have conversations. There are always people who are helpful, giving advice, arguing about advice, being polite and respectful of each other, and just enjoying this game of Godtear.
Very nice. Very well put. Before actually we go to Charlie, because it's Charlie's Twitch channel we're on, so I'll let Charlie kind of say the very last thing and close us out. I would just like to say, please do check out my blog, The Objective Hex. All the content everyone's talking about is great. This is my Discord handle, Cat. It's my real cat. He's not in his little king outfit. But Godtear absolutely rules. I feel like when it comes to miniature games, it sort of strips away all the things that suck about miniature games, right? Like we give up the chores. I think they're chores of like assembling and gluing things together and measuring line of sight, and instead get all the fun bits, which are rolling big piles of dice and making strategic decisions. And I think it's just a game that like leaves a lot of space to talk about it and to like have a life outside of it. It doesn't demand huge amounts of your time doing things that aren't fun. And I think that's part of the reason why the personalities that are drawn to it tend to be the ones that I want to interact with the most. So I feel like there's a great foundation for it to keep going. And thank you all for your time. Charlie, your channel. Bring us home, sir.
All right, guys. Speaking of my channel, so we're going to be having what? If there's 6 teams of 3, is that what, 18 games a week? I think something like
9.
that. 9? Okay. Either way.
Yeah.
Yep. Because each one you cut it in half. Yeah. So guys, if you want your game casted, if you want a video of it, just shoot me a DM or post in the online Godtear League channel, and I'll be there if I can. Give you guys tips. Because I love watching newer games, and because I can see different lines, but then when the new players find their own lines, so satisfying to watch. And then the other thing, I mean, that's about it that I got. We're blessed to have this community. Let's keep it growing, keep it strong. All right. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. You guys all enjoy the rest of your days.
Thanks for hosting, Sam. Appreciate it.
Guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.